Jae-in was born with a silver spoon in his mouth. Everything, from his childhood to his present life, had been perfectly curated. He grew up in the lap of luxury, wanting for nothing. His sharp intellect, striking good looks, and prestigious, high-paying job made him the epitome of success in many people's eyes. Simply put, his life seemed preordained for victory, a finish line he crossed without breaking a sweat. However, this privileged upbringing cultivated a distinct arrogance within him. Currently, Jae-in is the third-generation heir to a renowned hotel empire, overseeing a chain of top-tier luxury hotels. During a tense meeting with his grandfather, the heir was suddenly pierced by a ringing phone. His expression hardened, his icy gaze fixed on the source of the disruption. Before he could speak, another phone belonging to a different employee began to ring. Without hesitation, Jae-in grabbed the offending device and hurled it to the floor. The decisive, authoritative act, silencing the entire room. Compared to Jae-in's arrogance, Kim Da-hoon is a kind, gentle soul who works as an elementary school teacher. Her pure beauty and warm personality make her a beloved figure among her students and colleagues. During a field trip with her class, she heard a strange noise coming from behind them. Without a second thought, she instructed her students to stay put while she investigated. She discovered an elderly man who had fallen down a slope and was unconscious. Da-hoon immediately rushed to his side, tried to rouse him, and called for an ambulance to transport him to the hospital. Just as everything seemed settled, and she was about to leave, Da-hoon overheard that the man had no guardian, and the hospital would transfer him elsewhere. Without hesitation, she informed the nurses that she would be his guardian, ensuring he received proper care. Meanwhile, Jae-in was meeting with a foreign business partner. Initially, the executive declined a dinner invitation, citing a busy schedule. However, Jae-in, with his masterful persuasion skills, convinced him to carve out some time for a private meeting shortly. On his way back, a curious employee asked how he managed to secure a meeting with such an important figure. With his characteristic confidence, Jae-in explained that he had thoroughly researched the executive's preferences and discovered a fondness for Mexican cuisine. He had then hired a top-notch Mexican chef for his hotel, a key factor in swaying the deal. That evening, Da-hoon returned home, feeling lazy and reluctant to attend a fan meeting for her favorite idol. Her mother called unexpectedly, reminding her about a blind date scheduled for 2 p.m. on Saturday at the hotel. While not particularly enthusiastic, Da-hoon cheerfully agreed, figuring she could at least enjoy a free meal at a luxurious hotel. After the call, she lounged on the sofa, browsing the internet and reading fan comments about her idol. She remembered the apple given to her by the elderly gentleman she'd helped at the hospital and took a happy bite. The next morning, Da-hoon woke up early and meticulously prepared for her blind date. Everything was ready except for her phone, the most important item, which she'd accidentally left at home. A few steps outside, she realized her mistake and hurried back to retrieve it, causing her to miss the bus. At his company, Jae-in was in a meeting with his staff. Amidst the tense discussion, his phone suddenly rang. It was Lawyer Park from the She Corporation's legal team, reporting an urgent matter. Jae-in abruptly ended the meeting, instructing his staff to handle the remaining tasks in his absence. As Jae-in exited the conference room, his employees began to gossip about their strict boss. Before they could get too far, Jae-in unexpectedly returned for his jacket, silencing them all. He then quickly drove to the hotel. Meanwhile, in her rush, Da-hoon accidentally bumped into Jae-in. He swiftly caught her, his eyes showing concern. When he asked if she needed assistance, she simply replied that she was looking for the restroom. He went above and beyond, even pointing her towards the hotel's cafe. As Da-hoon walked away, Jae-in mused that she was clearly there for a blind date. Da-hoon, on the other hand, thought to herself how professionally trained the hotel staff were. Jae-in had a crucial meeting with his friend and lawyer, Mr. Park. The conversation revolved around the She Corporation's inheritance, and a stipulation in the will requiring him to marry a woman chosen by his grandfather. Jae-in was largely indifferent, having built his own successful life and possessing both financial security and power independent of the inheritance. However, the woman his grandfather had chosen remained a mystery, even to Mr. Park. While not overly concerned about the vast fortune, Jae-in's competitive nature prevented him from completely dismissing the matter. That evening, back at home, Jae-in quietly reread the will. Although money wasn't his primary motivation, the prospect of a stranger entering his family gave him pause. The will clearly stated that whoever married this mystery woman would inherit the entire corporation. This sparked Jae-in's competitive spirit, making it impossible for him to ignore the opportunity. The following day, Jae-in and Mr. Park arrived at an elementary school to locate the mysterious woman. To their surprise, The woman named in the will was none other than Da Huyen, an elementary school teacher. She was quickly summoned to meet these two strangers. Mr. Park politely introduced the Shech Corporation and Chairman Kyo Chul, but before he could elaborate, Jae-in interrupted, accusing Da Huyen of using tricks to charm his grandfather. Da Huyen wasn't one to back down. She fired back, even sarcastically suggesting that Jae-in lacked education and should let the more knowledgeable Mr. Park handle the conversation. Meanwhile, at his mansion, Jae-in's grandfather was enjoying afternoon tea. He confided in his subordinate, expressing his hope that his grandson would change upon meeting the right woman. Back at the meeting, Mr. Park gently explained that Da Huyen was named in the corporation's will. Initially, she dismissed it as a mistake, but upon closer examination, she realized all her personal details matched the information in the document. Da Huyen was utterly bewildered, while Jae-in remained convinced she was a gold digger. Infuriated, she threatened to call the police, but Jae-in quickly intervened, while Mr. Park tried to prove they weren't con artists. After a heated exchange, the three sat down, and Mr. Park carefully explained that to inherit the entire fortune, Da Huyen had to marry someone chosen by the chairman, and that person was none other than Jae-in. The two began to bicker incessantly, until Jae-in, losing his patience, abruptly ended the tense meeting. Later, back at the hotel, Jae-in ran into Tae-ha, someone he intensely disliked. They immediately exchanged heated words, and Jae-in left in a foul mood. Returning to his office, he began researching Da Huyen, discovering she was the president of a popular idol's fan club. He couldn't fathom how someone like her could have captivated his grandfather, and grew increasingly irritated, believing she was merely putting on an act to exploit the old man. That night, plagued by unanswered questions, Jae-in decided to call his grandfather for clarification. However, his grandfather flatly refused to speak and hung up the phone. Frustrated, Jae-in went directly to confront his grandfather. The old man calmly replied that Da Huyen possessed a unique quality their family lacked. If he were 30 years younger, he would marry her, not leave her for Jae-in. He emphasized that if his grandson refused to marry, the Shech Corporation and all its assets would go to someone else. Under pressure, Jae-in reluctantly agreed to pursue Da Huyen for 6 months, but remained uncertain about the future. The next day, Jae-in, dressed to the nines, sped to the elementary school like a whirlwind to see Da Huyen. Unable to find her, he was about to leave when he unexpectedly encountered her returning for her wallet. He dismissed it as coincidence, not destiny. They decided to discuss the marriage proposal at a nearby cafe. Despite Jae-in's attempts to entice her with the benefits of marrying him, Da Huyen firmly refused. She suggested they meet with his grandfather to verify everything. However, when Jae-in called, his grandfather flatly refused, accusing him of being motivated solely by money. He wanted to change Jae-in's life by pairing him with a kind-hearted woman like Da Huyen. Left with no other option, Jae-in continued to discuss the marriage plan, but Da Huyen remained steadfast in her refusal. She pointed out that while she was over 30, she wasn't desperate for a husband, especially an arrogant one like him. Her single life was perfectly fulfilling, and she didn't need anyone, especially Jae-in, disrupting it. Jae-in returned to his company fuming, venting his frustrations to Mr. Park. He felt like he was living out some bizarre cosmic joke, ranting about Da Huyen being sly, cunning, brazen, shrewd, and fierce. While Jae-in found Da Huyen insufferable, Mr. Park offered a different perspective, describing her as intelligent and straightforward, not someone easily manipulated. What stung Jae-in the most was Da Huyen's comment about him being the bonus prize in the deal. Jae-in decided to change tactics, adopting a relentless, almost shamelessly persistent approach. He was determined to pursue Da Huyen until she agreed to marry him. Meanwhile, Da Huyen went to the library and unexpectedly ran into her idol. As the president of his fan club, she had a close relationship with him and readily offered to help him study for an upcoming exam. That evening, Jae-in sat in his room, nursing a drink and staring at Da Huyen's picture. His mind raced with thoughts, determined not to lose this time. The following day, after her classes, Da Huyen agreed to meet Jae-in at his request. He continued to promote his dating contract, arguing that if they genuinely fell in love, they could both benefit from a bright future. But Da Huyen, content with her simple life, didn't want it disrupted by a stranger. She told Jae-in to inform his grandfather that she wasn't playing his game. That night, Jae-in couldn't stop thinking about who would control the Shech Corporation if he gave up. The next morning, Da Huyen put on makeup and prepared for a blind date arranged by her mother. Coincidentally, Jae-in was at the same restaurant meeting his mother. His mother urged him to marry soon and return to the Shech Corporation to secure the family's future. During their conversation, Jae-in spotted Da-hoon on her blind date. He saw his mother off and promptly proceeded to sabotage Da-hoon's date by making snide remarks, causing the flustered man to get up and leave. Da-hoon's mother, meanwhile, continued to pressure her daughter to find a boyfriend quickly. At that moment, Jae-in stepped in, declaring they could be the perfect couple. He proposed a 6-month trial of serious dating, promising to fulfill any conditions she set. Intrigued, Da-hoon began listing her terms. First, he must address her formally as Miss Kim Da-hoon or Teacher Kim. Second, she wanted him to invest in upgrading the school's facilities to provide a better learning environment for her students. Finally, she requested his support in securing a stable career for her idol within his management company. If he agreed, she would accept anything he wanted, except marriage. They shook hands, sealing the deal. Leaving the cafe, Da-hoon accidentally left her phone behind. Jae-in picked it up and ran after her. Suddenly, a car sped towards them, and Jae-in instinctively pulled Da-hoon into his arms, shielding her from danger. For a moment, Da-hoon's heart skipped a beat. He offered her a ride home, which she politely declined, expressing her satisfaction with their agreement. Jae-in, maintaining his cool demeanor, turned and walked away without another word. That night, Da-hoon drafted a dating contract to send to Jae-in. The next day, Jae-in took the contract to Mr. Park, emphasizing his desire to handle things his way, keeping Tae-ha out of the picture. He then immersed himself in work, staying late while his employees left for the day. He knew that wealth didn't come without hard work. The following morning, Da-hoon was surprised to see how quickly Jae-in had fulfilled her requests. Her students now had a school bus. The library was stocked with new books, and the dance studio was fitted with a large mirror. She happily danced with her students, then prepared for her first date with Jae-in. He had planned to attend a concert that evening, but a famished Da-hoon insisted on dinner first. They discussed dinner options, and she suggested grilled pork belly. Jae-in took her to a fancy restaurant, but she was disappointed she couldn't grill the meat herself. Throughout dinner, Da-hoon gushed about her idol, Jisoo, her secret crush. Jae-in questioned why she called Jisoo Oppa when he was only 21. Da-hoon explained that any handsome man was Oppa to her. Jae-in smirked, figuring he qualified as Oppa too. After dinner, they headed to the concert. Entering the elegant venue, Da-hoon felt self-conscious about her casual attire and hairstyle. She confessed her dislike for concerts, but Jae-in, having indulged her with dinner, insisted it was her turn to be fair. She reluctantly agreed and entered with him. However, upon seeing the press, Jae-in quickly released her hand, excusing himself to greet acquaintances. Unfazed, Da-hoon went to buy souvenirs, but Jae-in unexpectedly appeared and paid for her, annoying her that she couldn't pay herself. As they took their seats, Jae-in suggested they pretend not to know each other in front of the reporters. She wanted to leave, but he quickly grabbed her hand to keep her there. The concert began, but Da-hoon started dozing off. He warned her that if she fell asleep again, the penalty would be a kiss. Da-hoon snapped awake, trying to focus on the performance. After the concert, Taeha's family walked by, deliberately provoking Jae-in. He smiled and greeted them, but his eyes held a glint of cunning. To end the evening, they went to a cafe. While enjoying their coffee, Jae-in suddenly mentioned sleeping together, causing Da-hoon to choke on her drink. Then her mother called, pressing her about finding a boyfriend. Jae-in swiftly grabbed the phone, declaring himself Da-hoon's current boyfriend and promising to meet her family soon. This news thrilled Da-hoon's mother, who eagerly anticipated meeting her future son-in-law. Meanwhile, Tae-ha was tasked by his father to investigate the woman seen with Jae-in. Jae-in, however, was preoccupied with a different question. Why was Da-hoon's nickname at home Chicken? He found it amusing and couldn't resist asking. They chatted away, seemingly oblivious to the world around them. Outside, heavy rain began to fall, and Jae-in quickly shielded Da-hoon with his hand as he led her to his car. Arriving at her home, Da-hoon cheerfully presented Jae-in with the keychain she had bought with his money. She bid him farewell, wishing him a safe journey, and turned to go inside. Just as she reached the door, she realized with horror that she had accidentally given him the keychain with her house key attached. Panicked, she rushed back outside to find Jae-in still waiting. He playfully teased her with his height, holding the key high above her reach. This unexpected mishap brought them closer, much to the amusement of onlookers. Suddenly, Jae-in leaned down and gently kissed Da-hoon. Stunned and flustered, she pushed him away. Not to be outdone, she glared at him and delivered a swift, painful kick. Not satisfied, she followed up with another. Jae-in drove home, replaying the scene in his mind. He couldn't understand his own feelings. Da-hoon was equally bewildered. Despite her confusion, She found herself strangely enjoying the situation. He was a bad boy, but not entirely bad. Meanwhile, Mr. Park, working late, received a call from Jay in inviting him out for drinks. During their conversation, Jae-in's constant laughter and lightheartedness made Mr. Park realize his friend was undergoing a significant shift in attitude and emotions. The next morning, after his workout, Jae-in scrolled through his phone and saw the news of his date trending online. Instead of annoyance, he smiled with satisfaction. His grandfather also saw the news and mused that his grandson would finally be settling down soon. Jae-in's mother couldn't ignore the news either and immediately called him for details. At the same time, the beautiful actress, Soo Jung, previously rumored to be dating Jae-in, also called to inquire about his new girlfriend. While he immediately denied the rumors, he smiled as he looked at the keychain Da-hoon had given him. At the company, Jae-in's employees gossiped about their boss having a girlfriend. Manager Han feigned indifference, but Jae-in maintained his usual aloof demeanor. At a book cafe, Da-hoon stumbled upon information about Jae-in online. She was surprised to learn about his past relationships with famous actresses and models. Annoyed by his playboy reputation, she was interrupted by her idol, Ji-soo, who arrived with a bouquet of flowers. Ji-soo thanked Da-hoon because, thanks to her lawyer Mr. Park, he had escaped his oppressive management contract. They then sat down to study together. After a meeting, Jae-in checked his phone. Seeing a missed call, he quickly returned it and immediately invited Da-hoon for coffee. During their conversation, she began lecturing him on proper etiquette and basic social skills. As he listened attentively, his grandfather called, but he immediately silenced the phone to continue hearing her speak. She questioned him about the dating rumors spreading online. Jae-in chuckled, winked, and said he'd take responsibility, but wouldn't marry her. This flippant remark angered Da-hoon. She kicked him in the shin as a warning, even threatening to kick him where it really hurt if he didn't keep his distance. Jae-in laughed, leaning back to get a better look at her. He then opened his phone and showed her the emoji-filled messages she had sent him. He grinned, admitting it was the first time he'd received such emojis. Da-hoon was annoyed by his nonchalance, explaining she'd only sent them out of boredom. She made to leave, but Jae-in stopped her, asking about the bouquet. He feigned jealousy, seeing her receive flowers from another man. To address this, he added a "no infidelity" clause to their contract. Da-hoon retorted, demanding he refrains from seeing other women during their contract period. After a moment's thought, Jae-in agreed. Noticing Da-hoon blushing as she recalled their accidental kiss, Jae-in smirked, realizing she'd never dated before. With a mischievous glint in his eyes, he stated that holding hands, kissing, and sleeping together were normal in relationships. He then tossed her bouquet in the trash and took her hand, leading her to another date location. However, he chose his workplace, prompting Da-hoon to refuse and instead take him to a model building cafe. While there, Jae-in spotted a mother and child, triggering a sad memory of his mother. Excusing himself to buy drinks, he surprised the crying child with a model kit. This kind gesture didn't go unnoticed by Da-hoon. Upon returning, he brought her coffee and casually draped his arm around her as they built the model together. After he quickly finished his portion, Da-hoon praised his natural talent. Leaving the cafe, they found it raining again. Jae-in opened his umbrella, sharing it with Da-hoon. They looked like a perfect couple. Early the next morning, Da-hoon woke up to find her best friend excitedly rushing in. She couldn't believe her perpetually single friend had snagged a prince. Da-hoon laughed, showing her the dating contract. Her friend gleefully dragged her to Gangnam to prepare for her date with the famous chaebol, Jae-in. Arriving at the designated spot, Da-hoon searched for and finally spotted Jae-in. Excited, she approached him. He was waiting for her, and they entered an art exhibition together. Although Da-hoon wanted to walk separately to avoid misunderstandings, Jae-in unexpectedly put his arm around her. Pulling her closer, they strolled intimately through the gallery. Jae-in paused before a painting of a mother and child, his gaze thoughtful. Da-hoon was surprised by this artistic side of him. A man who appreciated concerts and art, how profound and steadfast. He revealed the gallery belonged to an acquaintance, his aunt's husband. The man in question appeared, greeting them both. Da-hoon learned that Jae-in's aunt had remarried, which is why he referred to him as an acquaintance, rather than an uncle. Suddenly, a longtime acquaintance of Da-hoon's appeared, cheerfully greeting her. Seeing another man approach his woman, Jae-in immediately asserted his possessiveness, taking Da-hoon's hand and declaring himself her boyfriend. Outside, Da-hoon explained that the man was her best friend's brother, someone she'd known for over 10 years. Jae-in's expression hardened. He reminded her that this violated their contract. No more calling other men Appa. His stern gaze intimidated Dahin into agreeing to his unreasonable demand. Later, Jae-in drove Dahin home. He casually walked inside as if he owned the place, inspecting every corner to assess security weaknesses and ensure her safety. As she approached, Jae-in couldn't resist leaning in for a kiss. Dahin quickly dodged, forcing him to stop. Despite this, he flashed a knowing smile before leaving Dahin flustered and feeling like her soul had left her body. She sat down, trying to compose herself. Meanwhile, Jae-in, driving home in high spirits, received a call that instantly changed his mood. It was Mr. Park, summoning him to a bar. He revealed that Jae-in's grandfather suspected he wasn't being entirely honest about his pursuit of Dahin. Mr. Park also advised Jae-in to date normally, instead of taking her to overly formal places like art galleries and concerts. He chuckled, exasperated by his friend's overly calculated approach to dating. That evening, Jae-in pondered Mr. Park's advice. He changed clothes and tried calling Dahin, only to reach her voicemail. Dahin was busy tutoring her idol, Jisoo. After their session, she received Jae-in's call. He scolded her for talking to that kid so late. He declared his intention to date like a normal person, and like normal people. Their conversation stretched late into the night. During their call, a noise outside startled Dahin. Jae-in immediately offered to come over and protect her, but it turned out to be just Dahin's best friend, arriving for a late-night chat. After hanging up, Jae-in felt a pang of disappointment. Dahin's friend confided that she just had a fight with her parents and struggled with the pressures of her wealthy family. They spent the night talking, sharing their innermost thoughts. The next morning, Dahin was pleased to see Jisoo practicing diligently, but when they briefly hugged, she remembered her promise to Jae-in. She abruptly stopped, mentioning an important appointment with that crazy guy. Meanwhile, Mr. Park sought out Jae-in for lunch. However, Jae-in already had plans with Dahin. While in the elevator, Jae-in badmouthed Dahin to Mr. Park, calling her a real witch with nothing to offer but a difficult personality. However, as they exited the elevator, he discovered Dahin standing there, having heard everything. Furious, she vowed revenge. But when they were alone, Jae-in thought to himself that she was truly an interesting woman, and he found it increasingly difficult to dislike her. He saw her as a pure, first love, and believed she would remain that way even 10 years from now. Determined to get even, Dahin visited her friend's clothing store to select the most fashionable outfit for their upcoming date. As Mr. Park was about to leave after waiting too long, Dahin emerged and transformed into a glamorous dress and eye-catching bag. Her stunning appearance left both Mr. Park and Jae-in speechless. Mr. Park stared, mesmerized by Dahin's transformation. Seeing her revealing outfit, he quickly offered his jacket to cover up. Observing Jae-in's reaction, Mr. Park complimented Dahin on her appearance. Jae-in simply glared at her, as if wanting to devour her whole. Meanwhile, Tae-ha had investigated Dahin and concluded she was an ordinary person, posing no threat. However, his cautious father instructed him to dig deeper, to ensure nothing was amiss. Back at the hotel, Jae-in's jealousy flared as men ogled Dahin, prompting her to storm off angrily. Mr. Park readily complimented her beauty and allure. Jae-in retorted slightly defensively that she wasn't always like that. Suddenly, he realized something was wrong. Dahin had left her purse behind. Without hesitation, he rushed after her to return it. They then decided to talk at a nearby park. Later, Jae-in took Dahin to her friend's store and scolded her friend for putting Dahin in such a revealing dress. Back home, Dahin enjoyed some fried chicken, recalling Jae-in's words from that morning. He loved her simple style and wished she wouldn't dress up out of anger. She giggled with her best friend, reminiscing about the moment. Meanwhile, Hyunjin grabbed Dahin's phone and, employing classic trap girl tactics, sent Jae-in a beautiful picture of Dahin as a playful apology. Jae-in, despite being busy at work, felt a surge of happiness upon seeing the photo. The next morning, Jae-in texted Dahin, inviting her to dinner and a movie at 7 p.m. He specifically requested she dress casually. However, an unexpected crisis arose at his hotel. A guest threatened to plant a bomb, forcing Jae-in to deal with the emergency. Simultaneously, he and his manager were meeting with an important client who unexpectedly fainted after the meeting. Jae-in rushed the client to the hospital. Meanwhile, at the cafe, Dahin waited for Jae-in all afternoon, but he never showed up. Amidst this chaos, another surprise emerged for Jae-in. His ex-girlfriend, who had dumped him 3 years prior, suddenly reappeared. She brought up their past engagement, accusing Jae-in of always being too busy for her, which led to their breakup. Jae-in calmly replied that she hadn't left him. She had rejected his proposal. After resolving the bomb threat, which turned out to be a hoax by an anti-fan, Jae-in realized how much time had passed. Da-hoon, heartbroken and dejected after waiting all day, finally gave up and left the cafe. After finishing everything, Jae-in frantically raced to find Da-hoon, speeding to her home. Finding her on a deserted street, he sighed, explaining that he'd tried to keep his promise. Da-hoon, frustrated, pointed out that he hadn't called or texted. Jae-in quickly explained his dead battery and the emergencies at the hotel. Mid-sentence, his phone rang with another work issue. Da-hoon, without another word, angrily bid him farewell and said she'd see him on the weekend. She entered her home, tears welling up in her eyes. Jae-in worked through the night, finally finishing early the next morning. He immediately called Da-hoon, but she didn't answer. After helping her friend at the clothing store, Da-hoon returned home and showered. Checking her phone, she saw 2 missed calls from Jae-in. As she was about to call him back, Jisoo called. Without hesitation, she headed to the mall to shop with him. Their outing was observed by Taeha from afar. After helping Jisoo with his studies, Da-hoon stepped outside. As she contemplated calling Jae-in, a woman bumped into her, sending her phone crashing to the ground. Meanwhile, Jae-in, unable to reach Da-hoon, had gone to her house and waited patiently outside. Finally, she returned. However, she seemed to ignore his presence, walking past him without a word. Infuriated, Jae-in exclaimed that he'd been waiting for an hour and a half. Hearing this, Da-hoon softened, finally agreeing to dinner so he could explain. They arrived at a fancy restaurant. During dinner, Jae-in recounted the previous day's events, detailing his work challenges and the emergencies he faced. When Da-hoon returned from the restroom, Jae-in quickly pulled her closer, taking her hand. Exhausted from a long day, Jae-in rested his head on Da-hoon's shoulder and fell asleep. Time passed, and the restaurant emptied, leaving just the two of them. Da-hoon's phone rang, but she silenced it, not wanting to wake Jae-in. However, the ringing roused him. Seeing his refreshed face, Da-hoon smiled and asked how long he'd slept. Jae-in grinned, replying he'd slept 4 hours in 3 days, including the hour he just napped. After dinner, Jae-in drove Da-hoon home. Before parting, she told him to get a good night's sleep to make up for making her wait the previous day. If he did, she would forgive him. Before leaving, Jae-in pulled her into a tight hug and apologized for making her wait. The next morning, after completing a training course at his company, Jae-in was again swamped with work. He returned home late that night, unsure if he'd actually followed Da-hoon's instructions and slept enough. The following morning, Jae-in bought a special gift for his stepmother. It was the first time he'd given her a present, and her radiant smile showed her happiness. Back at the office, he surprised his staff by announcing an early closing time for the weekend. His ex-girlfriend reappeared, asking to meet. They had coffee, but his demeanor was cold and distant. Leaving the cafe, Jae-in met up with Da-hoon. They went roller skating, laughing and enjoying each other's company. That night, Jae-in went to his usual bar. Nursing his drink, he recalled Da-hoon asking him, during a break from skating, if he wanted to marry her. She'd laughed it off as a joke, but her words resonated with him. Mr. Park arrived, ready to commiserate with his unlucky friend. The next morning, Da-hoon visited her friend's store, asking about gifts men like. Hyunjin joked about a 1 billion won car, or 100 million won, but she ultimately admitted that what men truly desired was women. On his way home, Jae-in ran into Taeha and launched into a philosophical lecture. Annoyed, Taeha decided to follow Da-hoon to the mall. While browsing, Da-hoon entered a watch store, but quickly left after seeing the prices. Outside, a little girl ran up to her, crying because she was lost. Taeha, also there, helped Da-hoon reunite the child with her mother. Afterward, he invited Da-hoon to dinner and asked for her number, but she declined, mentioning her boyfriend. Despite this, she was secretly flattered by the attention. That evening, Da-hoon took Taeha to Jae-in's hotel to surprise him for his birthday. Although happy with the party, Jae-in couldn't hide his sadness as he remembered his deceased brother's birthday. The happiest day of his life turned into the saddest. They took a commemorative photo. Jae-in confided that he hadn't celebrated his birthday in 20 years. Da-hoon's gift was a tie clip, which she presented by pulling his tie closer and saying, "You're mine." Before leaving, she gave him a quick hug and a fleeting kiss. Back home, he received a birthday call from his stepmother, who tearfully thanked him for his thoughtful gift. The following morning, after a meeting, Jae-in eagerly checked his phone, planning to pick up Da-hoon as promised. He was stunned by her message. She had something urgent to attend to. Jae-in texted back, asking what was up, but received no reply. It turned out Dahuin's mother had paid a surprise visit, and that was an urgent matter. A neighbor had told Dahuin's mother about her daughter dating a wealthy man, and worried about what she was up to. She'd come to investigate. Dahuin confessed to her mother about the 6-month dating contract with Jae-in. That evening, Jae-in called Dahuin. She answered discreetly, telling him how her parents wanted her to marry someone ordinary and live a normal life. Jae-in was bewildered. Being rich was now a problem. He was annoyed that she always hung up first and never initiated calls. He then remembered Dahuin saying they would break up in 2 months. The thought filled him with unease. The next morning, Dahuin saw her mother off in a taxi. Returning to her apartment, she was surprised to find Jae-in waiting. They chatted briefly before he invited her for coffee and a walk. They spent the rest of the day together. And that night, Jae-in held her hand as they sat and talked like any other couple. The next morning, Jae-in called Dahuin for another date. She said she was busy and challenged him to find her, since she always went to him. Jae-in, changing clothes at lightning speed, arrived at Dahuin's classroom in a record 1 minute and 30 seconds. He walked in, holding books, and joined the class with the children. After school, Jae-in waited for Dahuin. 2 students approached him, curiously asking if he was their teacher's boyfriend. Before he could answer, Dahuin arrived, denying it. But Jae-in contradicted her, stating he was her boyfriend, and that adults shouldn't lie to children. Dahuin, taken aback by his boldness, quickly ushered the children away. When the students were gone, they played in the schoolyard like children themselves, sharing a passionate kiss. They continued their date late into the night. Returning to Dahuin's apartment, they were shocked to discover it had been burglarized. Worried for her safety, Jae-in took her to his home. Inside, Jae-in immediately called someone to investigate the break-in. Dahuin, meanwhile, excitedly explored the luxurious villa. She accidentally walked in on Jae-in, changing, catching a glimpse of his toned physique, causing her to blush. Now she wasn't afraid of burglars, but of a different kind of danger. Jae-in. She changed into the clothes he provided and faced him, realizing he was a true playboy. Perhaps she was falling for his smooth words and thoughtful gestures. She mustered a last shred of resistance, saying that one of them would regret this when they woke up. Jae-in quickly excused himself, returning to his work. Dahuin sat alone in her room, feeling dejected. She opened the window, gazing at the night view. Hearing a noise, Jae-in peeked into her room before retreating. Dahuin went to the refrigerator, delighted to find a bottle of wine with her name. She wondered if she was so unattractive that Jae-in wasn't interested. She took the wine and started drinking while building a model. Jae-in came downstairs and saw a tipsy Dahuin. He approached her, chuckling. Enjoying yourself alone is against the rules. Dahuin offered him the wine. He held her close, letting her lean on him. She told him not to get any ideas. A gentleman wouldn't touch a drunk woman. She drank, questioning why she was in the home of such a handsome, intelligent, and sophisticated man. She touched his face, then his lips. Fueled by the alcohol, she confessed her feelings for him and her desire to kiss him. She leaned in and kissed him, then passed out. Jae-in gently carried her to bed and kissed her cheek. He chose to sleep on the floor, gazing at her innocent face, thinking that he might be the one regretting this in the morning. Outside, the rain continued to fall. The next morning, Dahuin awoke, mortified by her drunken behavior. Opening her eyes, she spotted a puppy trapped on the roof. In a heroic attempt to rescue it, she tumbled to the ground. Luckily, Jae-in caught her, preventing a nasty fall. Seeing her injury, Jae-in fussed over her, carefully cleaning and bandaging her wound. Afterward, while changing, he struggled with his sore arm from catching Dahuin. She entered the room and, seeing his predicament, helped him button his shirt and tie his tie. Jae-in then took Dahuin to his hotel for breakfast. As they ate, Manager Kang interrupted with urgent business. Noticing Dahuin's slight embarrassment, Jae-in introduced her to Manager Kang, emphasizing that they were seriously dating. After Jae-in left to handle the matter, Dahuin enjoyed her breakfast alone. Once finished, Jae-in called, asking her whereabouts. Learning she had returned to her apartment, he urged her to leave immediately, then rushed out for a date. His unusual behavior surprised his staff. As he reached the elevator, his ex-girlfriend rushed forward, clinging to his back. Jae-in angrily rebuked her before stepping into the elevator. Upon meeting Jae-in, Dahuin, with her finely tuned single-woman radar, detected an unfamiliar scent on him makeup. She questioned whether he had actually been at the hotel for work. Although Jae-in insisted he'd done nothing wrong, Dahuin remained suspicious. They returned to her apartment. Despite the mess, her valuables were untouched. However, their dating contract was missing. Dahuin was worried, but Jae-in and calmly stated that his makeup-covered shirt was a bigger problem. They went grocery shopping, where Da-hoon discovered Jae-in's shoulder injury was a fabrication. Back at his villa, they cooked and ate together. Jae-in gave her his house key, suggesting she stay until her apartment was repaired. Da-hoon felt awkward and worried, as their contract was nearing its end. That night, they both looked at the calendar, each lost in their thoughts and a touch of sadness. The following morning, Jae-in left work early, signaling Da-hoon to buy flowers. They returned to his villa and started cooking. Suddenly, a noise startled Da-hoon. It was Jae-in. Knowing he wasn't one to leave work early, she questioned him. Jae-in explained he wanted to ensure her safety. He'd had lunch with his father, who had shown him his grandfather's will, stipulating that pursuing Da-hoon was a condition for inheriting the vast fortune. After dinner, Jae-in took Da-hoon to his usual bar, where Mr. Park and his uninvited ex-girlfriend were waiting. Mr. Park pulled the ex aside, informing her that Da-hoon was Jae-in's girlfriend and asking her not to interfere. The ex sneered at Da-hoon's simple appearance, to which Mr. Park replied, "Because it's love." Da-hoon, eyeing an expensive bottle of liquor, claimed she would only smell it, not drink it. However, as soon as Jae-in left, she took a hefty swig. Outside, Da-hoon spoke with Manager Kang about the burglary investigation, which had yet to yield any suspects. In the restroom, she encountered Jae-in's ex, who taunted and provoked her relentlessly. Da-hoon, speechless with anger, returned to find the ex flirting with Jae-in, who firmly rebuffed her advances. Da-hoon stepped in, asserting her claim, and dragged Jae-in away, leaving the brazen ex behind. During the drive home, Da-hoon remained silent. Jae-in was puzzled by her mood swing. Back at her apartment, still angry, she mimicked the ex's cloying tone. When addressing Jae-in, she was furious that she had to address him formally, while another woman could be so familiar. Jae-in realized she was jealous. He tried to enter her apartment, but she refused to open the door. He stood outside, ringing the doorbell and groveling. Finally, she relented. Inside, they bickered before Jae-in kissed her passionately as an apology. He then left for work. Da-hoon, left alone, was flustered and shy, yet undeniably happy. After finishing his work at the hotel, Jae-in took Da-hoon back to her renovated apartment. He'd installed a fingerprint lock, replaced the old furniture, and redecorated. He'd also torn down Jisoo's posters for being more handsome than him. That night, Jae-in returned to his quiet villa. Da-hoon appreciated the changes to her apartment. They both lay in their respective beds, perhaps with a sense of unease. The next morning, Jae-in called Da-hoon, asking her to meet him at the hotel. He'd just seen his stepmother off, who had learned about his contractually obligated relationship. She warned him not to fall too deeply for Da-hoon, reminding him that wealthy people like them couldn't just marry whomever they pleased. Inside, Jae-in found Da-hoon waiting. He asked her to wait while he attended a 20-minute meeting. Taeha's mother, seeing them together, approached Da-hoon. After his meeting, Jae immediately went to find Da-hoon. Impatient with the slow elevator, he took the stairs. Meanwhile, Taeha's mother took Da-hoon to the cafe to question her. Before she could learn anything, Jae-in arrived, and she quickly left. Da-hoon then led Jae-in to a small alleyway for a casual lunch. Before they could enjoy their meal, his phone rang incessantly. She observed him, realizing he didn't even have time to eat. She urged him to finish quickly and return to work. Suddenly, she mentioned Taeha's name. Jae-in revealed that Taeha was the son of the woman they'd just encountered and warned her to avoid him. If Taeha approached her, she should inform Jae-in immediately. He even instructed her to ignore Taeha's name if she heard it. After lunch, they parted ways. Jae-in returned to work, and Da-hoon went to her friend's clothing store. Awkwardly, Jae-in's ex was also there. While Da-hoon was trying on a slightly tight pair of shoes, the ex snidely remarked that the shoes, like Jae-in, were a tight fit for her. Da-hoon retorted that Jae-in was much more comfortable than she thought, and shoes needed to be tried on to be sure. Her comeback silenced the ex. Back home, Da-hoon recounted the encounter to her friend. Just then, Jae-in called. Still annoyed, Da-hoon abruptly hung up on him. She then received a call from Jisoo, inviting her to his performance. Jisoo's performance drew a large female crowd, with Taeha observing from afar. Afterward, Taeha approached Jisoo, introducing himself as the mall manager. Impressed by his performance, he offered Jisoo future gigs at the mall, delighting them both. Late that night, exhausted from work, Da-hoon returned home to find Jae-in waiting in his car. She tried to avoid him, but his sweet words convinced her to let him in. Inside, Jae-in interrogated her about her day, prompting her to accuse him of infidelity. He argued that he barely had time to date, let alone cheat. They cleared up the misunderstanding and reconciled. However, their happiness was short-lived. The next morning, Da-Hein's friend urged her to check the news. The headline screamed, Jae-in, grandson of corporation chairman, engaged. A panicked Mr. Park immediately called Jae-in, summoning him to the office. Arriving at the office amidst a flurry of gossip, Jae-in was horrified by the news. He immediately called the press to retract the false report, then tried calling Da-Hein, who was busy teaching her students about plant care. In the hotel lobby, Jae-in ran into his ex, who, unrepentant, expressed her desire to marry him. Jae-in coldly told her to stay away and stop playing mind games. He was no longer the naive lovesick man she'd known 3 years ago. She threatened to become even more ruthless, but Jae-in, now wealthy and powerful, was unfazed. As they left, Sun Woo, witnessing their exchange, whispered to Jae-in that he was a true player. Jae-in raced to Da-Hein's school, only to find she'd already left. He frantically searched for her, and upon finding her, drove her home. Without letting her speak, he embraced her, stroking her hair. Before she entered her apartment, he asked for her trust, promising not to hurt her until their contract ended, and reminded her to answer his calls. Touched by his sincerity, Da-Hein smiled and went inside. Her friend, observing the romantic scene from upstairs, giggled with delight. That weekend, Da-Hein dressed up to see Jisoo perform at her school. She was surprised to see Taeha there as well. He revealed he was sponsoring scholarships for the students, and had helped Jisoo secure more performances. He even offered Da-Hein a ride home. Meanwhile, Jae-in was waiting for her at his villa, unaware that the man bringing her home was Taeha, his cousin. Da-Hein seized the opportunity to confront both men. It turned out the contract included a clause stating that Taeha also stood to inherit if he won Da-Hein's heart. The last page of the will, containing this crucial information, had been withheld by Jae-in with Mr. Park's help. Furious at being kept in the dark and feeling disrespected, Da-Hein stormed off. Jae-in rushed home and immediately called Mr. Park, demanding his assistance with this mess. Fearing for his job, Mr. Park arrived promptly. Jae-in suspected Taeha knew about the final clause, but that was secondary. His priority was appeasing Da-Hein. Mr. Park sighed, criticizing Jae-in's lack of romance. He suggested flowers and grand gestures to win her back. Jae-in scoffed, saying he'd never done that even for his grandfather. Exasperated, Mr. Park told him to do whatever he wanted. Despite Jae-in's repeated calls the next morning, Da-Hein refused to answer. She vented her frustrations to her friend. Just then, Jae-in called again. Da-Hein answered, uttered a single sentence, and hung up. Her friend laughed at their childish behavior. At the office, a desperate Jae-in sought advice from manager Han. Hearing about Da-Hein's cold and impersonal breakup style, Jae-in's face fell. That evening, the once aloof CEO swallowed his pride and arrived at Da-Hein's apartment with a giant bouquet and a flurry of balloons. His grand gesture worked, and Da-Hein forgave him. A clumsy accident led to another passionate kiss. Under a bright full moon, they strolled and talked. Da-Hein suggested it was time to meet his grandfather. If it weren't for him, she wouldn't be entangled in this ridiculous contract, and there would be nothing between them. Jae-in agreed and took her for ice cream. They walked arm in arm, enjoying a romantic evening. On the way home, Jae-in stopped by his grandfather's house. His grandfather invited him to bring Da-Hein to the company's anniversary celebration. Jae-in was surprised by the invitation. The next morning, he relayed the news to Mr. Park, who pointed out the significant implication. He had to publicly acknowledge Da-Hein as his girlfriend. Meanwhile, Taeha informed his father that his plan had been discovered. His father, unsure of Jae-in's intentions, was confident he wouldn't marry the teacher. Taeha hoped so too. Da-Hein arrived at the hotel and called Jae-in. He asked her to wait 30 minutes while he attended a meeting. She then ran into his ex-girlfriend, who taunted her about the engagement announcement. Da-Hein, not one to back down, retorted and called Jae-in to prove who was the real girlfriend. When he arrived, Da-Hein, in a fit of pique, stormed off, hitting him with her purse. The staff was shocked to see their formidable CEO so subservient to a woman. Outside, Jae-in told Da-Hein that his grandfather had commented on their closeness and asked if it was true. Da-Hein kicked him in the shin, retorting that she didn't even know his grandfather. Jae-in told her to prepare for the anniversary celebration and that he would take her shopping for a new outfit, as her friend's fashion sense didn't suit his taste. At Hyunjin's store, Da-Hein tried on countless outfits, none of which met Jae-in's approval. Finally, he selected one and took her home. Upon arriving, they found Taeha waiting. He wanted to speak with Da-Hein privately. Taeha sincerely apologized for his past behavior. Da-Hein accepted his apology and asked for his help with Jisoo's career. Taeha readily agreed, acknowledging Jisoo's talent. At home, the chairman was delighted to hear Jae-in would attend the company anniversary. The next day, Da-hoon, dressed in a pristine white dress and heels gifted by her friend, arrived at the party with Jae-in. He led her inside, drawing admiring glances. Unaccustomed to heels, Da-hoon's feet ached. Outside, she encountered Jae-in's ex, who, seeing her discomfort, sneered, accusing her of clinging to Jae-in for the inheritance and reminding her that people like them shouldn't mix with the poor. They exchanged heated words. Although Da-hoon held her own, the ex's cruel words stung. Hearing about the confrontation with Mr. Park, Jae-in rushed to comfort Da-hoon and re-entered the party hand in hand, much to the ex's chagrin. Inside, Da-hoon faced more criticism, this time from Taeha's mother. Jae-in's stepmother, about to defend her, prioritized appearances in business, telling Jae-in to attend to the company's guests instead of hovering over Da-hoon. Hurt, Da-hoon politely excused herself and left in a taxi, tears streaming down her face. Back home, a distraught Da-hoon confided in her friend, lamenting the vast difference between her world and Jae-in's. She recounted the insults from the two demons, the ex-girlfriend and Jae-in's stepmother, whom she mistakenly believed was his aunt. That night, she lay awake, waiting in vain for Jae-in's call. The next day, her friend took her out drinking. Da-hoon got completely drunk, forcing her friend to call Jae-in. Back at her apartment, a drunken Da-hoon poured her heart out to Jae-in, wishing they could overcome their differences and stay together. She acknowledged their different backgrounds and admitted her doubts, then passed out. The following morning, Da-hoon's friend woke her. She vaguely remembered talking to Jae-in, but couldn't recall the details. At 7 a.m., Jae-in arrived at her door with hangover soup. Afterward, he drove her to school. Meanwhile, Jae-in's ex sought information about Da-hoon from Mr. Park, hatching a sinister plan. That evening, Da-hoon worked late on lesson plans. Jae-in called and drove to pick her up, finding the school deserted. He waited outside. Meanwhile, the ex met with Taeha, offering him the key to Da-hoon's hotel room. This would secure the Shea Corporation for Taeha and Jae-in for herself. Jae-in, growing impatient, entered the school to search for Da-hoon. Taeha, tempted by the ex's scheme, took the key. Jae-in frantically called Secretary Jang and checked security cameras. The chairman, hearing about the situation, was furious. Taeha then called Jae-in to the hotel. Upon seeing him, Jae-in, without a word, punched Taeha. Taeha, not a villain, revealed the ex-girlfriend's involvement. Jae-in asked Taeha to drive Da-hoon home. The two cousins, once rivals, had a heart-to-heart. Jae-in promised to protect Taeha, who, in turn, revealed problems at the shul, likely orchestrated by his father. The mall was like a first love to Taeha. He didn't want to lose it. Hearing Taeha's plea for help, Jae-in called his secretary, announcing his return to the Shell Hotel the next day. Entering his villa, Jae-in found Da-hoon unconscious and became deeply worried. Da-hoon awoke, disoriented, unsure of her surroundings. Her friend rushed to Jae-in's villa, urging Da-hoon to return home for safety. Jae-in insisted she stay, and Da-hoon agreed. That night, she had a nightmare, finding comfort in Jae-in's presence beside her. The next morning, Jae-in took her to work, and then went to his own office. Taeha's father arrived, reprimanding Jae-in after hearing about Da-hoon's ordeal from his sister. Mr. Park and Taeha joined them to discuss dealing with the ex-girlfriend. A steely-eyed Jae-in vowed to punish her for harming his woman. After the tense meeting, Jae-in drove Da-hoon to his luxurious penthouse. Amidst the romantic sunset, he cared for her tenderly. Da-hoon, still unable to recall the incident, vaguely remembered feeling faint and losing consciousness. Jae-in struggled internally, reluctant to reopen her wounds, but her insistence on knowing the truth forced his hand. Sitting together on the sofa, he recounted the events, his voice heavy with anger as he described the ex's actions. Instead of the expected outburst, Da-hoon calmly stated that the ex should face the consequences of her actions. Her composure impressed and moved Jae-in. Meanwhile, the ex's father frantically approached Mr. Park, pleading and demanding an equal measure. He believed money could solve any problem, but he'd underestimated Jae-in, a man who lacked nothing, including money. Despite being tempted by a lucrative offer, Mr. Park's loyalty to Jae-in prevailed. Jae-in received a report that Hanju Chemicals, the ex's family business, was aggressively acquiring small shares. Suspecting foul play, he requested government intervention to freeze the shares. Finished with work, he returned home to prepare a romantic dinner with Da-hoon. Afterwards, she prepared to leave, but Jae-in insisted she stays, citing safety concerns and mentioning he would be staying at the hotel. However, having forgotten his laptop, he returned to find Da-hoon emerging from the shower. Looking breathtaking, he pretended to leave, then surprised her from behind. He approached her, gently caressing her face, and kissed her passionately. The next morning, following Jae-in's orders, Tae-ha fired several executives involved in bribery at the mall. That evening, Tae-ha's father was summoned to the chairman's house and severely reprimanded. Realizing he was cornered, he booked a flight to the US, urging his son to confess and join him for a quiet life. Hanju Chemicals, his ticking time bomb, was backfiring. The ex-girlfriend sought Jae-in's forgiveness, but he remained cold and indifferent. Meanwhile, Soo-jong, rejected at an idol audition, encountered Ji-soo, and in a moment of shared disappointment, they danced together, finding solace in the music. Ignored by Jae-in, the ex pleaded with Mr. Park for help. He took her to Da-hoon's apartment to apologize, but her insincerity only fueled Da-hoon's dislike. Jae-in arrived, furious with Mr. Park. Da-hoon's defense of him only irritated him further, and he sent everyone away. She explained that she had forgiven the ex, leaving Jae-in both annoyed and touched. However, the ex-girlfriend's troubles weren't over. Her accomplices leaked evidence of her crimes to the police. Mr. Park advised her to start living an honest life. Just then, the ultimate antagonist appeared, Jae-in's stepmother. She'd initially trusted her son's judgment, but after reviewing Da-hoon's background check, she changed her mind. The next morning, news broke about the police investigation into Hanju Chemicals. Jae-in and Da-hoon enjoyed their blossoming relationship, strolling, jogging, and sharing intimate conversations. Lying in bed, Da-hoon felt a pang of sadness, thinking about the final day of their contract. Jae-in's stepmother visited Da-hoon at school. In the quiet of the office, she subtly reminded Da-hoon of the vast difference in their social standing. She also expressed her deep affection for Jae-in, treating him like her own son. Da-hoon calmly listened, reiterating that she had no intention of marrying him, and that their contract was ending soon. Before leaving, Jae-in's stepmother cryptically remarked, "What a pity." Back home, she recounted the conversation to her husband. Despite acknowledging Da-hoon's good qualities, she disapproved of the relationship. Jae-in's grandfather, on the other hand, expressed his fondness for Da-hoon, considering her a rare gem. Da-hoon, meanwhile, stared at the calendar, the contract's end date looming closer. She remembered her drunken confession to Jae-in, tears welling up. Jae-in invited Da-hoon for coffee and told her about a trip to commemorate the last day of their contract. They traveled to a beautiful beach, enjoying the sun, sand, and surf, creating lasting memories. Watching the sunset over coffee, Jae-in asked about her ideal type after their breakup. She described a warm, caring man, a stark contrast to Jae-in's aloof personality. Realizing the difference, he gave her a necklace as an early birthday present and quietly left. While driving Da-hoon home, Jae-in received a call from his mother. His grandfather had collapsed and been hospitalized. Assuming it was another one of his grandfather's dramatic episodes, he casually continued their conversation, discussing plans. They both acknowledged their feelings, but fate seemed determined to keep them apart. Jae-in hugged Da-hoon goodbye, wishing her happiness with someone better. He rushed to the hospital, finding his grandfather in critical condition. The gravity of the situation hit him. He had to put everything aside and take over the company. His mother briefed him on the will and his responsibilities, urging him to focus on work while she handled everything else. Jae-in immersed himself in work, but Da-hoon remained on his mind, equally heartbroken. She tearfully confided in her friend about the breakup. Jae-in officially became chairman, the weight of responsibility heavy on his shoulders. Talking to Mr. Park, he confessed his fears. He worried about Da-hoon being alone, vulnerable to danger like the previous break-in. Exhausted, Da-hoon fainted after work. Her friend found her and took her home. She called her brother for help. Hyun-jin was furious with Jae-in, but his brother noted that if the woman was suffering so much, the man must be hurting too. Indeed, that night, Jae-in sat by his grandfather's bedside, his usual stoicism gone, revealing a heart broken by love. Da-hoon awoke from her fever. Her friend, Soo-jong, had just returned, dejected after failing her idol trainee audition. Jae-in, seeing her, pulled her towards his car, causing Hyun-jin, who witnessed their interaction, to misunderstand. She informed Jae-in about Da-hoon's illness. That night, he visited her apartment, but she missed him. He went to the hospital to see his recovering grandfather, then worked through the night. His stepmother joined him for breakfast the next day. Despite dining with his mother, Jae-in couldn't shake the image of Da-hoon from his mind, bringing tears to his eyes. He visited her school, gazing at her workplace. Da-hoon too lingered after school, reminiscing about their happy moments. Jae-in sought solace in alcohol, but the empty villa only amplified his heartache. Memories of Da-hoon flooded back, triggering tears. Da-hoon and her friend attended Jisoo's performance. Jae-in, dragged along on a shopping trip by his half-sister, was seen by Da-hoon, breaking her heart. Looking at his empty hand, no longer bearing the "good boy" sticker Da-hoon had given him, Jae-in felt a deep pang of regret. Da-hoon too mourned their lost love. Chairman Lee received shocking news. Manager Kang hesitantly reported Jae-in and Da-hoon's breakup. The old chairman sighed, lamenting his grandson's rigid adherence to business over personal matters. Meanwhile, Da-hoon focused on self-improvement. She poured herself into teaching, took driving lessons, learned a new language and reorganized her apartment, slowly filling the void Jae-in had left. Jae-in, on the other hand, buried himself in work, constantly haunted by her memory. Concerned by his grandson's decline, Chairman Lee instructed Manager Kang to arrange a blind date. Despite lingering feelings for Da-hoon, Jae-in reluctantly agreed. The date was awkward. After a few polite questions, he coldly declined, leaving the bewildered woman wondering what went wrong. Jae-in's mother questioned her father-in-law's approach, asking if he was sure about this. Hyo Chul sighed, saying they loved each other deeply, and the blame lay with them, not him. She then secretly visited Da-hoon's school, observing her from afar with a thoughtful expression. After school, Da-hoon enjoyed dinner and shopping with friends, relishing her newfound freedom. Then, her mother called, pressuring her to go on a blind date. Under a torrential downpour, a dejected Da-hoon arrived at her dreaded blind date, only to run into Jae-in. He looked at her with a mixture of concern and heartache, but duty called, and he turned away. Jae-in wrestled with the urge to call her but resisted. Da-hoon's friend enlisted Taeha's help in rekindling their relationship. Feigning indifference, Taeha orchestrated a scenario where Jae-in witnessed Da-hoon on her blind date. Seeing her with another man, Jae-in's heart sank. He realized he still loved her deeply. That night, Jae-in attended a meeting, his mind in turmoil. As Da-hoon's date escorted her home, Jae-in suddenly appeared. Without a word, he pulled her into a passionate kiss, a desperate attempt to reclaim their lost love. Stunned, Da-hoon fled inside, her heart in confusion. The next morning, Jae-in picked up Da-hoon. She sulked about the woman at the mall, but cheered up upon learning she was his half-sister. By a picturesque riverbank, Jae-in held her hand and confessed, "Da-hoon, I love you." These simple words, filled with the affection she craved, brought tears to her eyes. He proposed, and a joyful Da-hoon accepted. After all the trials and tribulations, Jae-in could finally be with Da-hoon. He sought his family's blessing for their marriage. Despite their disapproval, their wedding was a warm and intimate affair. Taeha surprised everyone by confessing his feelings for Hyunjin, Da-hoon's best friend. Married life was blissful. Da-hoon became a devoted wife, even engaging in charity work. Taeha's persistence finally paid off, and Hyunjin agreed to date him. At an Ash Corporation event, Chairman Hyo Chul gave a poignant speech about the 1% difference in love, resonating with everyone. Jae-in and Da-hoon volunteered at an orphanage, their happiness amplified by the news of Da-hoon's pregnancy. A news article praising her charitable work boosted the She Corporation's image. The story concluded with heartwarming messages about love, happiness, and sharing. In life, the chance of meeting your soulmate is only 1%. The other 99% is destiny. So if you find that 1%, hold on tight, express your love, and never let them go. Alright, that's the end of the movie. Take 3 seconds to subscribe to our channel and show your support. Thank you for watching. We'll see you in the next movie. That's all for today's episode. Thank you for watching. For now, goodbye, and see you again soon.